So the Chiefs are looking to potentially have their greatest weapon on defense sit out on Christmas due to injury. Meanwhile, the Steelers are getting their most impactful player on offense back after missing 3 games. Well, this will definitely make things much more difficult on the Chiefs and could force the offense to carry them to victory. The good news is, I think they can absolutely get the job done. So I've got to talk about why I think that and how, a couple roster moves, a look at the injury report, and much more as I preview this upcoming game against the Steelers on Christmas. But first, how about those? All right, first up, I have an injury update on Texans wide receiver Tank Dell, who suffered a serious knee injury during the game against the Chiefs on Saturday, then needed to be carted off and taken to a local hospital. Texans head coach DeMeco Ryans shared with the media today, saying that Dell not only dislocated his knee, I think it was his kneecap, actually not actually his knee, but he also tore his ACL and suffered other damage on top of that. So he's going to undergo surgery, and the result will be missing the rest of the season, with the start of 2025 being in question. Such a tough injury for a key player on that team, and of course, I'm wishing him a full recovery for next season. Now, the Chiefs also lost a player for the season in linebacker Jack Cochran, who fractured his ankle. That's a tough loss for Dave Toub and special teams in particular, because he was basically an emergency depth piece on defense, but nobody played more special team snaps than Jack Cochran. Now, with Jack Cochran being placed on IR, it was announced today by the team that they are opening up the 21-day practice window of tight end Peyton Hendershot, who was placed on IR roughly a month ago with a calf injury. So maybe he's the one that takes the open roster spot by the end of the week, but we shall see. And by end of the week, I definitely meant Wednesday. This is just a weird week, all things considered. Well, it's also worth noting that's not the only tight end move that happened today. The Chiefs announced on their social media account, X, that they signed veteran tight end Robert Tonyan to the practice squad. There's a few different things going on with tight ends. They placed Baylor Cupp, tight end Baylor Cupp, on the practice squad injured list. And so you've got another guy in the room now, a veteran guy on the practice squad that can be called up in case of emergency. But with Hendershot about to return, I think you're probably not going to see Robert Tonyan. But again, he's been in the NFL for quite some time, was formerly of the Packers, was most recently on the Vikings, didn't see any playing time, played for a year on the Chicago Bears, but his best season was in 2020. He caught 52 passes for 586 yards and 11 touchdowns. So if push comes to shove, you could have this guy elevated, but he doesn't know the playbook. It's going to take some time to get acclimated, kind of like Steven Nelson, the defensive back that was formerly with the Chiefs, and he hasn't seen any game action, even though he's been on the practice squad for a couple weeks now. But it is worth mentioning that even though I don't think Robert Tonyan is going to see any action at this point in time, they did make a move and sign him to the practice squad. Now, another injury scare in this game was Xavier Worthy being listed as questionable to return with an ankle, but he came back and ended up finishing out the game, having a career game at that. Worthy then said his ankle is fine afterwards when he spoke to the media, so that's some good news there. Some more good news is the ankle of Patrick Mahomes. He obviously wasn't 100% out there in that game, but he had an awesome scramble for a touchdown, and Patrick said today that he's in a lot better place now compared to the lead up to the Texans game, which is awesome to hear. And injuries are definitely a bit of a cause for concern for both the Chiefs and Steelers at this point in time for a few key players. I'll get into that in a bit, but I want to hone in more on the Steelers in particular first. The 14-1 Chiefs travel to Pittsburgh to take on the 10-5 Steelers, and there's a lot to talk about there. Russell Wilson eventually took over the starting job from Justin Fields in October once his calf injury healed up, and since then, he's gone 6-3 as their starter, and honestly, I am happy for Russell. Let's ride Wilson. He was easy to troll around about when he was on the Broncos, but he's playing well with the Steelers, and I do not wish him success on Wednesday, but the change of scenery was clearly a good thing for him. However, Russell has lost 3 of his last 5 starts, including the last 2 in a row. They only managed to put up 13 points against Philly, then got curb stomped by their division rival in Baltimore. It was actually a competitive first half, with Pittsburgh giving up a wide-open touchdown to tight end Isaiah Likely in the red zone for the first score of the game. Then Russell Wilson had a nice scramble for 20 or so yards upfield, was nearing the end zone, but got lit up inside the 5 and fumbled, with the Ravens not only recovering, but turning that into a 90-plus yard touchdown drive. So it was 10-17 at the half, Steelers trailing by a touchdown, and they actually tied the game in the third quarter with help from a 44-yard deep ball to Calvin Austin and a touchdown catch by Cordarrelle Patterson. From there, though, the Steelers turned the ball over on downs after failing to convert on 4th and 6, and after getting some momentum by picking off Lamar in the red zone and having the chance to tie things up at 24-all, Russell Wilson then threw a pick six just 2 plays later, and that ultimately put the game out of reach and ended in another L for the Steelers. Part of the reason they've dropped back-to-back games is injury-related, with their biggest offensive weapon, George Pickens, missing the last 3 games. They have some defensive guys out too, key starters at that, but the loss of George Pickens is a huge one. They've averaged just 15 points per game in their last 3, and there's also been a clear dip in yards with Pickens out. But some good news for Pittsburgh is it looks like the hamstring of George Pickens is indeed healing up. Head coach Mike Tomlin said yesterday that several guys who didn't play Saturday in the Steelers' loss to the Ravens have a chance to play on Christmas, and those players were quarterback Justin Fields, who kind of just comes in from time to time and runs the ball on option plays, and then wide receiver George Pickens, and that's on offense. And then cornerback Dante Jackson, safety Deshaun Elliott, and defensive lineman Larry Ogunjobi could also find themselves playing, which would be much needed for their defense. And I'll touch on their defense in a moment, but if Pickens does end up playing, that is a huge boost for the entire offense, especially considering Kansas City's all-star defensive tackle Chris Jones might not be playing. That means we need to see everybody else elevate their game, from George Karlaftis to Charles Omenihu, Mike Pennell, and Turk Wharton. A bunch of pressure might actually be on Turk Wharton to play out of his mind along the interior. Then maybe Marlon Tuipulotu dresses out for this game if Chris Jones indeed does not. Either way, the pass rush will definitely take a hit if Chris Jones does not end up playing, and that could give Russ even more time in the pocket to go through his reads. Spags could also send pressure even more to compensate for no Chris Jones. That creates more one-on-one opportunities for Russ, and KC's defense has been known to give up chunk plays on key downs this season, so I do not love that idea, but of course I'm going to trust Spags over anything that I can think up here. We might see the newly signed Steven Nelson called up for this game, maybe as a depth piece from the practice squad, potentially, but if not, Joshua Williams and Najee Johnson will keep rotating end, and Roland Wallace should find himself back in the slot again, because I don't think Shamari Connor is going to clear concussion protocol by Christmas. Now, whoever it is out there in the secondary, Justin Reed, B. Cook, doesn't matter. You just better be ready, because Russ loves to throw down the field, with Pickens leading the NFL on deep targets, catching 14 of them for 474 yards. With Pickens out, though, Russ still connected deep with Calvin Austin in the third quarter against the Ravens, and Austin is second on the team in receiving yards, only behind Pickens, followed by tight end Pat Freiermuth. Running back Jaylen Warren is actually next on the list, a dual threat back who's caught 33 passes for 269 yards, but also has 103 carries on the ground for 419 more. KC is definitely going to have their hands full, because you can't sleep on Van Jefferson in the pass game either. Then running back Najee Harris is having a hell of a year, averaging nearly 4 yards a carry on the ground and almost 1,000 yards this season. He averaged 4.7 yards per carry on Saturday against Baltimore, so he is somebody to keep eyes on, because he's honestly not far behind Jaylen Warren in receiving yards either. He's caught 30 passes for 256 yards through the air, and the receiving stats for both of those running backs, for comparison's sake, is pretty close to the Chiefs' third down back in Samaje Perine. Perine has 25 catches on the year for 289 yards. I just want to say thank God for Trent McDuffie. He's probably going to hold it down with Pickens or Austin, whoever is going to end up being out there, but we've really got to have these others step up, including the linebackers covering these running backs in the pass game, so we need a good game from both Bolton and Drew Tranquill. Now, on the year, the Steelers' offense is averaging 23.5 points per game, which is 12th best, but they're a bit all over statistically speaking. They're 13th on third downs, 11th in rushing yards per game, 25th in passing yards per game, and 30th in red zone touchdown percentage. The Steelers kind of remind me of the Texans in some ways. The offense has nice pieces, but the defense is definitely helping them along. The Steelers actually lead the entire NFL in takeaways, recovering more fumbles than any team with 15. They have the third most interceptions, and this helps Pittsburgh have the second best turnover differential, only behind the Bills, believe it or not, but the Chiefs have a positive turnover differential as well now, helped by the fact that Mahomes has thrown 0 interceptions in the last 5 games, and the defense has 7 takeaways in the last 2 weeks, plus 1 special teams takeaway on a punt return, so that's 8 in the last 2 weeks. All right, before I finish up my preview of this game, I wanted to share some of my favorite Underdog picks. Underdog is not only the best and easiest place to play fantasy sports, but any new signups using code HBTC will get up to $1,000 in bonus cash, plus a free Patrick Mahomes pick in the lobby. And with Mahomes being the promo pick, that is my first no-brainer selection. Then I'm going with the higher on Samaje Perine's 9.5 receiving yards. He's done that in 10 of 11 games this year and also the last 5 in a row. Next, give me the higher on 3.5 catches for Travis Kelce. He's had 4 or more receptions in the last 5 games, and I expect that trend to continue. Next, with Chris Jones potentially not playing and George Pickens trending towards potentially returning, give me the higher on Russell Wilson's 199.5 passing yards. Chiefs' run defense is solid, so Russ is going to have to throw it in this one. And finally, I'm hitting the higher on DeAndre Hopkins, 29.5 receiving yards. He's done this in 5 straight, and with Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy getting a lot of attention, Mahomes will find the guy because all he does is catch the football. And with that, I put a quick $10 down for a chance to win up to 8.06x on my money. So to support the channel and roll with these 5 or build something different, click the link in the description down below. And again, any new signups who use my code HBTC will get up to $1,000 in bonus cash plus that free Mahomes pick in the lobby. Next up, let's talk Chiefs offense versus Steelers defense before I get further into some injury updates that I'm not a big fan of. It's going to put a lot of pressure on the Chiefs to get this W. But it's worth noting that the Chiefs offense truly is starting to heat up just in time for the playoffs. Aaron Schatz shared today that if you look at KC by single game DVOA, which is a statistic that measures how well an NFL team performs compared to the league average, the Chiefs' last 3 weeks have been their 3rd, 4th, and 5th best games of the year, and I would say they looked noticeably better on offense, specifically last week with the return of Hollywood Brown, and his role should indeed increase, and we honestly might need him in this one big time. Mahomes himself told the media today that with Hollywood back, you could see what the offense was initially supposed to look like at the beginning of the year. I mean, it's not exactly the same. Rice is out, but DeAndre Hopkins is here. Hollywood, he's back though, and that definitely helps. He played 20 snaps on Saturday, but still saw 8 targets, catching 5 of those for 45 yards. 2 of those catches was to convert a 3rd and 7, and then another was on 4th and 1, so a couple of key ones for sure. Then they missed on an opportunity to potentially score a touchdown, and Hollywood spoke to the media about that today. He said he's feeling good after his first game back, was blessed to be back out there, and is ready to go again. But that play he was off with Mahomes down the right sideline could have potentially been a touchdown. It was basically lack of reps. It's going to cause miscues like this, but Hollywood said he spoke with Mahomes after that play about his expectations based on the coverage they saw, because it looks like they both had 2 different thought processes there, but he now knows how Mahomes thinks, and moving forward, they'll be good. Well, that's why these reps are now so valuable before the playoffs, and that's why I think Hollywood is going to play a role on Wednesday as well, with the big reason being he is fresh. This is only his 2nd game on the year, and he's itching to get back out there and work. Meanwhile, a lot of these guys have been playing week in and week out. They're battling injuries, soreness, they're tired, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, Hollywood is the opposite of all of that. This will not be easy though, because the Steelers defense is fantastic. They are the 6th best scoring defense, 11th best in yards allowed per game. They also allow the 7th least rushing yards per game and are 13th best in the red zone. That's going to be a key to watch. I feel like I say it every week, but this is a really good defense in the red zone. Meanwhile, the Chiefs were 3 for 4 in the red zone last week. So can you keep that trend going? Because in this one, you're probably going to need touchdowns more times and field goals if you want to win it. Pittsburgh also has some dogs along the D-line. Cameron Hayward leads the team with 52 pressures, with TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith not far behind. TJ Watt, though, leads the team in sacks with 11.5, and the matchup to watch of all matchups might be Watt against whoever is playing at the right tackle spot, because as you'll see here in a moment, that is currently up in the air as far as who is going to play. I would anticipate the Chiefs running backs are utilized in the pass game, with Kareem Hunt and Samaje Perine combining for 5 catches for 74 yards in the air against the Texans. Still, though, in a perfect world, they also get the run game going, even though the Steelers defense is was great in basically every single statistical category against the run. Kareem Hunt did average 5 yards a pop a few days ago, and while the carries were almost split evenly between Hunt and Pacheco, Kareem saw the majority of the work in the second half. Either way, I would anticipate KC to attempt to throw the ball quite a bit, successful run game or not, because that is just who they are. They did do that well against another great defense in the Texans, with one key being Mahomes getting the ball out very quickly. Next Gen Stats shared that he averaged just 2.5 seconds release time, which was his lowest of the season since like week 4. And there's a couple reasons why that trend will probably continue on Christmas. If it's not for the fact that they can't establish a run game against a great defense, the O-line is not going to be 100% out there. Joe Thuney is most likely going to be the left tackle with Mike Caliendo at left guard, but then I'm not yet sure if Jawan Taylor is going to be playing at the right tackle spot. He left last week's game in the second half, was questionable to return, and actually didn't return, with Wanye Morris playing pretty decent at the right tackle spot in his stead. That could potentially be the front 5 for this week. Thuney, Caliendo, Creed, Trey Smith, and Wanye Morris on the right side. Thuney is the best bet at the left tackle spot until DJ Humphries returns, but as you'll see here in a moment when we look at the injury report, I'm still not sure Humphries is ready just yet, and they may be extra cautious here because you'll have quite a bit of rest after this game. And with Jawan still being a question mark as well at this point in time, that D-line versus O-line is going to be a key thing to watch. Now, the Steelers defense, as I said earlier, should be getting some much-needed help back this week, but they might be down one of their top cornerbacks in Joey Porter Jr. He suffered a knee injury against the Ravens, and he did not finish the game. And depending on how it all plays out, watch for Corey Trice, number 27. If he's out there in the secondary, you might see Mahomes take some shots in his direction. He's a young cornerback in the rotation, and you could maybe see some favorable matchups brought over on his side. But if they have a couple of these defensive backs coming back for this game, maybe Trice doesn't play. Again, it's all up in the air. At this point in time, we shall see. But look for Mahomes regardless to lean on Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy again, as they were the top targets last week and seem to feed off of each other. Travis Kelce, maybe even Noah Gray might get more involved in this one, as the Steelers do allow an average of over 50 yards a game to tight ends. All in all, this will not be an easy game. I mean, it's probably the most important game of the Chiefs season so far. And with Chris Jones potentially not playing, this is going to be hard as hell. The Steelers haven't yet won their division, and they're going to want this W pretty badly after losing 2 in a row. On top of that, they do have home field advantage, so KC will be in a pretty hostile environment. Steelers fans do not play around. And again, with Chris Jones potentially not playing, the defense is going to be stressed, especially if George Pickens is able to return. So the offense might actually need to score 30 or more in this one to get the W, which is something they could have done against a great defense in the Texans on that final drive a few days ago. Thankfully, things are clicking for the Chiefs offense at the right time, and having to cover so many talented pass catchers, DeAndre Hopkins, Travis Kelce, Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, that's going to put stress on the Steelers defense. It won't be easy when looking at both sides of the ball, and injuries and the fact that both of these teams are playing their third game in just an 11-day span, which is pretty crazy. Because of that, this very well could be a very weird game, but ultimately, I'm rolling with the Chiefs getting the dub. If they win, the 1 seed is theirs, and they can rest starters against Denver and get the first round bye, so I think they're going to be very motivated to get this win, and that's why I think the Chiefs end up pulling out the W by a score of 30-24. The Chiefs are only 2.5-point favorites, but I'm looking for an excellent Patrick Mahomes game, and if he can play clean with no turnovers, I like KC's ability to get this one done. Make sure to let me know your score prediction and keys to victory in the comments below, and from here, let's take a look at the injury report and how things look right now for both teams. The main ones to look for with the Pittsburgh Steelers is who is trending in an upwards direction. That's going to be quarterback Justin Fields going from a DNP on Sunday. Again, that's like an estimated practice, to limited today, so he's trending up and will probably play. They'll use him in some niche packages, bring him out every once in a while. No big deal there. Russell Wilson is definitely going to be your starter. Then George Pickens, biggest one to look at here, limited, then full participant today. He is trending to play, and most likely that's going to happen per reports around the Steelers from their beat reporters. So that's a big deal for the Steelers offense. Other players trending up is definitely going to be safety Deshaun Elliott, cornerback Dante Jackson, and then defensive tackle Larry Ogunjobi. They all went from limited to full, and at least as of right now are trending towards playing on Christmas. The two guys that don't look like they're going to play, cornerback Joey Porter Jr., that's a big loss, but you're getting other players back on defense, so it offsets a little bit. And then wide receiver Ben Skoranek with the hip. He has not practiced all week either and probably won't play. Now let's get to the Kansas City Chiefs because there are a few players worth looking at and one in particular worth talking about, which is a big loss for the defense. First up, Chamari Connor. He's probably not playing. Doesn't seem like he's yet out of concussion protocol. DJ Humphries. He's not going to be playing either from the looks of it. Andy Reid would rarely have somebody not participate all week and then not play in a game save for a few different people. And obviously we'll get to that in just a second. But with DJ Humphries probably not playing, once again, you're going to see Joe Thuney, then Mike Caliendo over there on the left side. The one player that could potentially not practice all week yet still play is going to be Chris Jones. There's probably 3 players that could do that and pull it off, with that being Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and then Chris Jones. The problem is he's dealing with a level 1 calf strain per reports, and if you look at what a medical doctor would think of that, Dr. Jesse Morse, again, he's not on the inside with the Kansas City Chiefs, so he doesn't know, but he's going to give his medical expertise. He said reportedly Chris Jones suffered a grade 1 calf strain. I believe that Jones will likely miss the next 3 to 4 weeks, and then that means he'll return for the first playoff game. Why? Calf strains are notorious for re-injury and also further re-aggravation, and it zaps your explosiveness. So then he said re-injury to a grade 1 strain usually leads to a grade 2, which takes about 6 to 8 weeks to return to play. So based on Chris Jones, the size that he is, the mammoth of a man, and the position he plays, he very well could sit this week. Matt Derrick of Chiefs Digest, per his Q&A earlier, he said, hey, it's not looking like Chris Jones is going to play. If he had to put money on it, he just said it doesn't look like it's trending that way. And he didn't seem overly concerned of having Chris Jones miss out. I am a little bit more concerned because George Pickens is going to play in this game. And that's why I think it's going to be tough for the Kansas City Chiefs. Things just got much more difficult for the Kansas City Chiefs. The title of my video, and that is why I am saying that. Now, the only other player to look at, Jawan Taylor. Will he play? Limited. He'll probably be listed as questionable, and then we may not even know until game time. But if Jawan Taylor can't go, I do feel pretty confident about Wanya Morris being on the right side there. Everybody else was a full go on back-to-back days, including Mahomes with the ankle, and then Peyton Hendershot. They just brought him back from IR. He could potentially go. He was a full participant on Monday, so we shall see about that. But with all that being said, make sure to let me know your thoughts on this game, score prediction, how you feel like the injuries are playing out. Do you think Chris Jones will play? Let me know your thoughts on all that in the comments down below. We will find out for sure tomorrow, game designations and statuses, and if it's worth going live, I'll do a breaking news reaction to everything going on. But I will also be live for the Christmas game, Chiefs Steelers noon. I'll do the play-by-play reaction. Until then, though, be safe. Have a great Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, all of that. And until next time, let's go. Let's freaking go. How about those?